Heyo, and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. The 2019 Survivor Series was actually pretty good. But it does have a large amount of mistakes that we are going to go over here tonight. I cannot believe that NXT was allowed to win out the night. I know that's going to be one of the things you're going to hear most. You're going to see a lot of glowing reviews about this show, but it's very, very easy to be distracted by this overwhelming weekend for NXT to not truly see the writing on the wall. Do you guys all need me to tell you why NXT won the Survivor Series tonight? Do you need me to explain it to you? Well, stick around and find out, because we are going to talk about it right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare, and you are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's 2019 Survivor Series reaction show. Let's do it.
Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
The holiday season is here, and with that brings merch. Merch for you guys to buy your own little sledge heads at home, or maybe you want to buy a t-shirt for a friend, and I got the perfect t-shirts for you, the Sledgehammer TV logo t-shirts, available in 5 colors to choose from, each color representing something professional wrestling. We got red for Raw, blue for SmackDown, yellow for NXT, black for AEW, and orange for House of Glory. And of course, if you want to be cool, you want to be the coolest kid in school, you get yourself a Poop Hammer t-shirt. And when somebody asks you, why are you wearing a poop hammer on your chest, you tell them, well, this is because this is what you deserve to be smashed in the face with. And then you could also tell them that the Poop Hammer is a part of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, which is a show you enjoy, and they should all come along and subscribe and become part of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show family today. Thank you guys for joining me. Survivor Series was really good, man. It was good. The action, for the most part of the night, was good. The few things that disappointed me, well, I shouldn't say few, because there are quite a few things that disappointed me that happened on this night, but overall, you can't complain when you have as much good stuff as we got tonight. NXT wins this thing 4-2-1. And that I could have never predicted to you. I thought for sure NXT was just going to be there to take pinfalls and be just there, to be involved and get like a participation trophy. Welcome to the crowd. Welcome to the club, new kids. But that's not what happened here. NXT came out in full force. They dominated for the majority of the night. And why? Why is that, you might be asking? I can't believe that Vince McMahon would allow NXT to... Well, I can explain it to you, and you probably already figured it out. Because you are not a stupid person. If you're watching this show, I can tell you that you are not a stupid person. And you know that Vince McMahon allowed all of this to happen so that he can get more eyes on NXT on Wednesday nights and not be so far behind AEW in the ratings. Vince McMahon never gave a shit about NXT over the last couple of years, and now, because he's feeling the heat and he's seeing the pressure coming in from the outside, the old man says, you know what, Triple H, you can have your kids beat my guys, but we're gonna make it look like they did it underhanded, and we're gonna make them look like cheaters, and we're gonna do whatever it is to make my guys still look good before the night's done. That's what we got tonight. NXT won, but still the Raw roster and the SmackDown roster were allowed to shine in their own moments and make certain people from NXT, in my opinion, look kind of foolish, while at the same time they were there saving the Survivor Series from the main roster. So let's talk about some of the stuff. Oh, you're saying it's such a good show, Mr. Nightmare. Well, what the hell are you going to complain about? Well, let's talk about it, because there are plenty of things wrong. First of all, to illustrate my point that we were just talking about, the way this show went off the air tonight. The women's match, the triple threat match between the champions of the women's divisions of each respective brand, should not have been the main event tonight. And it's not a slight on the women. They actually went out there and put on a pretty badass match. It was hard-hitting, it was hard-fought, and they did the best they could. But this crowd was absolutely out of it. After all of the action that they were put through previously, I don't think there's any main event that could have followed Brock Lesnar and Rey Mysterio and everything that happened during that match, because once that was over, the crowd was done. They were spent. I think they could have had the reunification of the 4 horsewomen of NXT and the 4 horsewomen of the UFC, and I still think the crowd would have been a little bit lackluster. Maybe an appearance by Ronda Rousey might have gotten people out of their seat. Maybe that's what everybody was waiting for, and when it never come, nobody gave a shit. Nobody ever really said Ronda Rousey was going to be there, but people were assuming that being it was, the Survivor Series, and Ronda was going to have Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke in tow, and you had all of the proper pieces in place, that this was an avenue they might go down tonight. But that was definitely not the case. And the women's match only suffered from a crowd in Chicago that, much credit to them, they were there and they were in this show all night long. But the girls lost them. And it wasn't their fault. They put on a great match. I actually enjoyed the match for the most part. There was nothing wrong with the matchup, except for the way it finished. Because you had Shayna Baszler tapping out Bayley. You got her a decisive win. And instead of having NXT come out and celebrate with the women's champion, you don't have her girls come out and celebrate with her girl. You don't have anybody coming out and just putting a real cap on the night as NXT the victors of the entire weekend. When you take Saturday into account and then you take everything they did tonight into account, this show should have went off the air with Shayna Baszler standing proud, NXT surrounding the ring, holding their heads high for everything they put forth to us all weekend long. And instead, we had to make the man look good. Becky Lynch didn't lose this match, and she needed to make a point out of that by beating up Shayna Baszler post-match. And then walking around yelling at the crowd, this is my house, Raw is my show, this is that, you didn't beat me, I'm still the man, blah, 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 blah. Unnecessary. Definitely unnecessary. And just like I told you guys, just a way for the WWE to say, hey, our guys are still the big stars. Don't get it twisted, because Becky Lynch is still the man. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are still going to be the final 2 survivors for the most part. And nothing is really going to change. But we are going to help NXT get more eyes on their product by having them dominate all night long. And this was the theme of the evening from the very beginning. First of all, let's talk about the pre-show. And right off the bat, the pre-show's existence is something wrong. It should not even be a thing they do anymore. In fact, for the big 4, big 5 pay-per-views of the year, they should cut that shit to 1 hour. And take the 2 matches that you're going to put on the pre-show and just have them be part of the card. And just make the card start at 6 p.m. Why not? You're doing it anyway. If the people come, they come by 6. If they don't, they don't. If they tune in at 7, they tune in at 7. What is the difference to you? Why not just have it be part of the actual show? We don't need a goddamn pre-show to hear Booker T and Christian and Charlie Caruso and all these people come on and pretty much just reiterate all the WWE's regurgitated garbage that they feed down our throats on why we should be enjoying everything so much. It's not necessary. 2 hours long of a pre-show. Then you want to put 3 matches on the pre-show. 3 matches on this 2-hour pre-show. And one of those matches is going to be the only interpromotional triple threat championship matchup that the championship is actually being defended in. Don't you think a match where you're having a title defense should be on the main card, but not if you're a cruiserweight? And definitely not if you have anything to do with a tag team division. We had a meaningless tag team battle royal that had absolutely nothing at stake except for the bragging rights and the team brand warfare nonsense. And then you had the other tag team matchup, the triple threat tag team match between the brand's 3 specific champions, relegated to the pre-show as well, proving to the world that if you are a cruiserweight or you are part of a tag team, Vince McMahon don't give a shit about you. In fact, you don't even count. You don't count. You just put on the pre-show and just get everybody warmed up, and we don't really need your match on the show because I don't give a shit about tag team wrestling and anybody that's not 300 pounds or more. That's what I see. Those are 3 big mistakes right off the bat just on the pre-show. The pre-show and the matches on the pre-show, well, the second 2 matches on the pre-show were pretty damn good. The Battle Royal to start things off was stupid. It was unnecessary. It was featuring all these tag teams that were not being used tonight that would have been better served just having the night off than having this ridiculous matchup where all of the talents from NXT were immediately eliminated before you even can blink an eye, and then it was brought down to the Street Profits and Rude and Ziggler. And as I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way the Street Profits don't get put over in this moment, even though it's just a stupid pre-show match, boy, would I be wrong. As Ziggler and Rude get the win in this stupid Battle Royal. Get a win for SmackDown. And that, at the end of the day, was what it was all about, because they didn't want NXT running the table, so we got to get a few token wins. But by the end of the pre-show, each matchup would feature a winner from each different brand. We had SmackDown win the first match. We had Lio Rush defend the Cruiserweight Championship in a very good triple threat Cruiserweight matchup. So NXT won that matchup. And then you had the Viking Raider Warrior Raiders win a somewhat entertaining tag team matchup. It had its moments, but the New Day definitely didn't need to be in there. I think it would have been a better matchup if they would have left it as the Revival as your SmackDown Tag Team Champions. I don't know why the Pancakes are still a thing. Are the Pancakes really that over that they need to continue to be a thing for the New Day? Can't we move on and do something different? They used to change shit so frequently. All of a sudden we got stuck on pancakes and fucking unicorns. Give me a break. But the triple threat tag team matchup didn't mean anything at the end of the day, but giving Raw its 1 win for the whole entire evening. Thanks to the Viking Raider Warrior Raiders. Thanks. I did like their gear, though. They came out with some really cool red helmets. And props to all the guys. I know I gave them shit. Like, there's no reason to be so loyal to your brand, being that the brand split just kind of happened and the rosters are only just starting to become their own identities. But everybody going out there wearing their brand colors and having gear made in the theme of, you know, you have to give them props for that, because it's just adding a little bit of extra that if they didn't do, I would say something. They're not just coming out in Raw and SmackDown and NXT t-shirts. They're actually putting some theme to their gear. So give everybody a little bit of props for that. A little positivity here before we continue raining down the hammers with the negativity, because all of these segments could be considered poop hammer material. And we all know that the poop hammer is going to be dropped on somebody at some point before this night is through, and I will decide who it is. I haven't decided who it is just yet. I have a big feeling that I'm just going to give it to WWE Creative for one particular moment, but we'll get to that as we go along. And while we're talking about being cool team players and having themes to your gear, the one theme I didn't appreciate were these teams coming out to the theme songs of their actual shows. That was just absolutely cringy and retarded. Why each team couldn't have came out to their team captain song? I don't know. Why did the SmackDown teams have to come out to Are You Ready? The most anticlimactic rock song I've ever heard. No disrespect to AC/DC, one of the greatest rock bands to ever rock on the planet Earth, but that song is atrocious. And it's just so commercial. And are you ready for a good time? And Roman Reigns is walking down with his mad face. Are you ready for a good time? It was terrible. And if you go by the songs, NXT had the best song. That Slipknot song, it's hype, it's awesome, it fits NXT, and coming down to the ring, that's the type of a song you'd want to have. You want to have a bumping, thumping, hard rock song. We are not your kind. It was cool for them. But for Raw, that really dated sounding Monday Night Raw song that's actually brand new, but it sounds like it's a Raw theme from 10 years ago, only recycled. And then, are you ready? Terrible, terrible choices. The women's match that started this show. a whole lot of things wrong with this matchup, not the least of which is Candice LeRae and Io Shirai leaving this matchup due to injury, mimicking what happened at last night's War Games. That's all they were trying to do there. Oh, Team NXT is down by 2 women tonight. Will Rhea Ripley's team be able to survive? So they wanted to mimic that. But then they found a way to ruin that by having Candice and Io both return to the match before it was over with no explanation. Oh, they're just fine now, and here they are. And now they gave Rhea Ripley the decided advantage, making them look like a bunch of cheaters, which I didn't appreciate. And while I do enjoy the fact that the NXT women won this train wreck of a matchup, it was just very sloppy. It was strange. It was very strangely booked. I don't understand why they had to eliminate those girls from the matchup. They took away so many possible pairings. Even if they just got in the ring for just 2 minutes, I was looking forward to seeing a possible confrontation between Asuka and Io Shirai. Or Sasha Banks and Candice LeRae really having some time to go out there and do a little something in the middle of this matchup. There were so many pairings and possibilities. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. We got to see a little bit of some of these things. But they didn't do anything fun. They didn't do anything all that interesting. They had Asuka eliminate herself from the matchup because all of a sudden now she's pissed off at Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair tagged herself into the matchup without Asuka being aware, or Asuka's cooperation, and Asuka took offense to this. They started pushing each other. We had that team turmoil. Oh, inner team turmoil. Asuka's getting back at her for WrestleMania 34 right here. All of a sudden, why did you decide to be on this girl's team if you didn't want to take orders from her? She's the team captain. The captain tagged herself in, and now Asuka's pissed off. And now these 2 girls are fighting amongst themselves. Asuka decides she's going to leave. Or first Charlotte tells her to leave, and then she kind of like smacks her around, delivers a little shot of some kind, and then Asuka's just down on the floor. I'm like, well, what is going on here? Only for Asuka to spit in Charlotte Flair's face, allowing Charlotte to have an excuse for the reason why she lost. Oh, well, I didn't really get beat. Asuka spit in my face. Protecting their golden queen. The same queen that speared Io Shirai right out of her socks. Holy cow. And to that point, how are you going to want me to believe that Candice LeRae and Io Shirai were injured to that extent from a spear and a dropkick after what I seen them endure last night at the War Games? And now you're telling me Charlotte Flair is more powerful than everything else that Io Shirai had been put through last night? Oh no, all the injuries compounded enough so that tonight she's not 100. Stop it. Be consistent. If nothing else, be consistent. If she's going to be out there injured, make her sell the injury. She's coming out there. She's being all Io Shirai-like. Not looking like she's in all that much pain. Selling is gone in professional wrestling. And then in this matchup, what did we have? We didn't have anything all that interesting. We had people like Carmella and Dana Brooke in this matchup, adding nothing to anything that's going on. Sarah Logan running around in her war paint. Nikki Cross is just there. And none of this match would be about any of them. Lacey Evans was more important than all of these women. To whoever booked this crap. Awful. This whole match was just... It wasn't a bad match. It was just the choices they made for some of the spots were just ridiculous. I didn't really... It's not that I didn't really enjoy it. It's just... It didn't make much sense, and it felt very strange, which kind of just took me out of the match while I was watching it. Rhea Ripley and NXT win this matchup and start the night off in a big way for NXT on the main show. The order of eliminations are as follows. Candice LeRae and Io Shirai were taken out by the injury. Bianca Belair pinned Nikki Cross with a schoolboy and cheated by using the ropes. But Bianca Belair also pinned Sarah Logan after executing a 450 splash. Charlotte Flair then pinned Carmella with a natural selection. Sasha Banks pinned Kairi Sane with the Meteora, which I thought was a little bit too soon. Asuka then pinned Dana Brooke with a spinning kick, which was not soon enough. Charlotte and Asuka had the dissension between each other. Asuka spit the green mist into Charlotte Flair's eyes and then abandoned the matchup. Flair was then hit with the woman's right by Lacey Evans. Natalya then pinned Lacey Evans. Natalya and Sasha Banks performed a double submission on Toni Storm. Natalya executing the sharpshooter. Sasha Banks did have the bank statement at the same time, and Toni Storm had no choice but to tap out there. Bianca Belair then pinned by Heart Attack. Natalya and Sasha Banks executed the Heart Attack on Bianca Belair and pinned her. And now this is one of the eliminations where I'm trying to bring that point where the match was good and it did some cool things, but then having Bianca Belair just pinned after just the one move. Like, Bianca Belair was seemingly 100%, and she gets in this matchup, she's all fired up, and then she gets hit with the Heart Attack, and then she's just out. And we had a lot of that type of shit happening in the Survivor Series style matchups all night long. In fact, all of the eliminations that I just read to you, as fast as I read them to you, were probably as fast as it happened in this matchup. That's my problem with it. It was almost like they didn't know what to do, and then they just rushed through all the spots, and then it kind of got a little bit interesting at the end. Sasha Banks turned on Natalya, pinned her when Natalya thought they were going to be working together. This left Sasha Banks and Rhea Ripley as the final two, which was awesome. And I loved all of that. And then we had the return of Candice LeRae and Io Shirai to help Rhea Ripley gain the advantage. And that was awesome. But the finishes of the matches were good. But that doesn't mean that the lead up and most of the matches going on made much sense at all. We go to the back. We had Seth Rollins with Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens said that he loved NXT, but NXT doesn't need Kevin Owens. Raw desperately needs Kevin Owens. He is certainly right about that. As much as I would love to see Kevin Owens go back to NXT and tear it down with some of the guys down there, his only reason for doing what he did at NXT TakeOver War Games last night was to get even with the Undisputed Era after their attack on him on Monday Night Raw. So he does not want his loyalty questioned, and actually questions Seth Rollins' loyalty, because he is somebody who also has turned his back on men who he considered his brothers at one time, trying to build some tension there. And so I'm believing in the men's match we are going to have one or maybe both of these men turning on Team Raw and maybe moving over to NXT in order to drive up ratings. But instead, we're just going to win out the night for NXT. Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles versus Roderick Strong was my favorite match of this night. Roderick Strong, to me, is the most underrated and underappreciated person on NXT and in all of the WWE. He's the North American champion for a reason. His performance last night in War Games was fantastic. Look at his body of work. He has probably been the busiest member of the Undisputed Era. He has defended his championship successfully in triple threat matches before, and this was going to be no different. This was a very impressive showcase for Roderick Strong in his first major pay-per-view on the WWE main roster level, and I see big things for him in the future. If he could go in there and hold his own with guys the caliber and capability of an AJ Styles and a Shinsuke Nakamura and come out being the shining star of that matchup, while Shinsuke and AJ Styles are both putting on a very good matchup at the same time, and you're going to walk out saying Roderick Strong beat these two guys, the North American champion is the predominant mid-card title in all of the WWE. If you want to base it off of this one matchup and who wins and who loses, I'm all in on it, man. This was fantastic. I loved this matchup. It was very special. It was very, very good. It didn't need much extra. It was just a straightforward smash and grab. Three guys that know how to wrestle going out there and doing their thing. and it is much appreciated. Roderick Strong coming out with the win here was a shock to my system. I definitely did not have Roderick Strong winning this thing. I thought for sure they were going to find a way to have him be the one to take the pin. I was almost positive Shinsuke Nakamura was going to come out with the win here. AJ Styles and the OC have been on a losing streak. They're not trying to build him up. Shinsuke's kind of got the momentum. He's got the brand new title belt. So I thought maybe he was going to be the one to go over, but they put NXT's Roderick Strong above everything else. And you might not like it, and you might say, oh, they're just showing up and putting all the vanilla midgets over the main roster guys, and they think that's a good look, like some idiots like Brad Shepard think. How can you be a journalist and claim to be a journalist and say such a thing? I will never know. When you just watch this guy put on a classic, one of the matches that can be considered one of the best of the year. Stop that shit, man. This was very good. We've seen Daniel Bryan and The Miz backstage for some reason. The Miz decides he's going to be this fucking Daniel Bryan's hype man all of a sudden. And he's trying to tell Daniel Bryan, listen, you got to beat The Fiend. You got to beat him for our kids. You got to beat him for our families. You got to beat him for this and that. Why does The Miz care? Oh, well, I was in the ring just like you, and I felt that same feeling. What, you got the mandible claw stuck down your throat, Miz? When did that happen? I didn't see that on SmackDown Friday. Did you guys? I didn't see that. Absolutely not. And then Daniel Bryan rightfully told The Miz to get out of his face. And The Miz walked away all confused because, he can't understand that people don't want to hear him speak. Especially when the man's back there trying to mentally prepare himself and get ready to do battle with one of the most sick and twisted individuals we have ever seen in the WWE. I want to talk about this really quick for a second. It's in the notes here. And Michael Cole wanted to make us aware that Mauro Ranallo was supposed to announce the NXT Championship matchup tonight at the Survivor Series. But he blew his voice out. He was so passionate at War Games that he blew his voice out. Now, some of you guys that are in the know and that are on social media know that's an absolute 100% bold-faced lie. Mauro Ranallo was criticized by Corey the Asshole Graves, or more accurately, fans were getting at Mauro Ranallo based off of something that Corey Graves had tweeted. Most fans were being very supportive of Mauro because he did one of the best lines of the night last night, proving why he's so great at commentary. And then Corey Graves wants to go on Twitter and be like, oh, well, there's also a Hall of Famer and a Ring of Honor former champion out there, so blah, blah, blah. Which I don't understand why that was even necessary. And then all of a sudden you got people talking shit about Mauro Ranallo, and now we all wake up in the morning and Mauro Ranallo's deleted his Twitter account. Which means he's pissed. And the guy deals with some really serious mental issues. And if this is a case of Corey Graves triggering Mauro Ranallo to the point where he didn't want to come to work, much like what happened with JBL that has been lied about in the past now, that's some fucking bullshit. And I really, knowing this all day long, made me not even want to listen to Corey Graves tonight. I think that was very disrespectful. And social media is a place where a lot of us go and voice our opinions because we don't have any fear of getting punched right in the face. Because there's nobody standing there in front of you, so you're just going to run your mouth. And sometimes stupid things like this happen. And now I have to watch Adam Cole and Pete Dunne for the NXT World Heavyweight Championship, and the best the best commentator that they have on the roster, the guy that should be calling this matchup, isn't there because Corey Graves is a dick. That's all we're going to say about it until we get more facts. Adam Cole versus Pete Dunne for the NXT title. This was a really good singles matchup, and it is no surprise, but my one criticism with this matchup is the fact that it exists. I don't understand why it was more important for the WWE to have this matchup on this card tonight than to have some continuity and use some common sense and let people who watched War Games last night actually believe that falling from the top of a steel cage and being delivered a white noise through 2 tables exploding into the canvas last night might be just a little much to ask of a heavyweight champion to go into fight tomorrow after receiving something like that. Let me word that a little better, because I'm so passionate about this that I don't think that came off right. And if you didn't understand what I just said, let me make it a little bit more clear. How can you take a move like that and still be walking the next day? You know, we've seen in the past wrestlers take bumps and then be off TV for weeks. Look at how long Dio Madden has been missing from a Brock Lesnar F5 just to sell the effects of an F5. And now here we have Adam Cole, baby, dropped from the top of a steel cage through tables, and now he's delivering another 5-star matchup just 24 hours later, which is a credit to the guy. He's young. When you're young, you don't feel the pain, and he's going to regret it one day, but it made for an excellent matchup, and I'm appreciative of everything that he put himself through last night and then tonight for my entertainment. But if you're talking about professional wrestling, how can you do that and not feel like the art of selling is dead? They don't care to sell these things anymore. Just because you're coming up with the tape around your midsection doesn't mean... I mean, this is 24 hours later. At least let it wait until Raw or something. I don't get it. I don't get why you would not want to at least make it seem like that was maybe life-threatening. Because it was. It just pulls the veil back on the industry a little bit for me. But that's just me. That's just me. The men's match was just as bad as the rest of the show. I'm jumping ahead here because we just kind of switched topics. But Adam Cole defeats Pete Dunne in a very, very good match for the NXT title, retaining the championship. My favorite spot was the Panama Sunrise on the ring apron, which was just unbelievable. How he remained in the proper position, the balance and the skill that it took to execute that was second to none. Adam Cole showing why he is one of the best that do this in the entire world. The Fiend Bray Wyatt defeats Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship, and we're seeing red again. And I'm not singing an old Chevelle song from the early 2000s. I'm talking about the Fiend's matches. Why we have to have the red light still be a thing, I don't know. McMahon, you don't have to put on the red light, because it makes it hard to see this stuff. I can't see these matchups. I have a really good TV, all right? And everything just looks like a blob of red. And it's annoying. And I don't want to see a Daniel Bryan match through rose-colored glasses. It takes away from it for me. It lessens my enjoyment. And to me, The Fiend versus Daniel Bryan was just more of the same old shit we've seen The Fiend doing with Seth Rollins. Daniel Bryan's going to come at him and hit him with everything he's got. He's going to hit him with 101 yes kicks. He's going to execute his running knee multiple times. And Bray Wyatt's going to continue to pop up like he's the Undertaker circa 1991. And while it is not 1991 anymore, and I understand the character they're trying to build, I do not appreciate this type of a character that has absolutely no feeling of pain. Oh, well, it's wrestling. You gotta suspend your disbelief, right? Well, maybe if it was anybody other than Bray Wyatt. We are talking about Bray Wyatt. The very same Bray Wyatt that led the Wyatt family that we have seen in the ring get beat 150 times already in his career. What happened to make him suddenly invulnerable? It doesn't makes it, oh, he puts the mask on and he's the Fiend and now he feels no pain. There's got to be something more to it, and I need them to delve more into that story. When we started with the Firefly Funhouse and we unveiled the Fiend, I thought we were going to get this real complex tale of the inner workings of Bray Wyatt's mind and why suddenly he can feel no pain. Why suddenly wearing the mask makes him this demon that just is unstoppable. But we're not getting any cool television. We're not getting any compelling storytelling. We're getting mandible claw after mandible claw in red lights, in flickering strobe lights, and in any other sort of lighting they can give us, except for nice crystal clear lighting that will allow us to actually see what's going on. Awful. Awful. The matchup was what it exactly needed to be. It just needed to be Bray Wyatt getting a win. Daniel Bryan, the most impressive thing and the biggest thing to talk about in this matchup is how much the WWE missed the boat with Daniel Bryan. Here is a guy that right now nobody knows what his alignment is. We don't know if he's the yes man Daniel Bryan. We don't know if he's the planet's champion. But here he is, in the ring, bathed in red, against arguably the hottest property in the WWE. The very same guy that was being cheered when he was put opposite Seth Rollins. And here we are with The Fiend versus Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan is the most over man in professional wrestling. When he put those fingers up for that yes chant, I don't think I've heard a crowd that loud since the yes movement culminated at WrestleMania 30. It echoed throughout my house. I couldn't believe he was even doing it, but the reaction to it was so insanely intense. And what does that tell you? It tells you that Daniel Bryan was the heir apparent to John Cena. Not Roman Reigns, not Seth Rollins. And tonight is your proof of that. Daniel Bryan can do anything. And he does it 100%, and these people love him. I've always been a huge Daniel Bryan fan. And matches like tonight are one of the reasons why. Not because the match was so great, but when you see the command this man has over the WWE Universe, and how invested they were in that matchup by the end, and how disappointed they were when The Fiend came out victorious, as opposed to the last pay-per-view when they were cheering The Fiend. It's special, just like Daniel Bryan is. Bray Wyatt got the mandible claw and pinned Daniel Bryan with the mandible claw for the win. Rey Mysterio talking about his main event matchup tonight, or what I thought was going to be the main event matchup of the evening, his WWE Championship matchup with Brock Lesnar, talking about how he's going to take Brock Lesnar out at the knees. And he hopes that Dominic is going to watch close as he's going to pull off a miracle and be the one to deliver the massacre to Brock Lesnar. And I'm going into this match thinking if Dominic doesn't turn on his old man and help Brock Lesnar get the win here, then maybe they're doing it wrong. But they didn't. And they did the Brock Lesnar-Rey Mysterio match very well. And we will talk about that in a second, because first we have to talk about this train wreck of a men's match, which was boring as shit to me. Now, I know many of you guys probably enjoyed it, and the end of the match was interesting when we had Keith Lee as the sole survivor of Team NXT being left in there with the two biggest dogs in the fight, in the yard, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, and it did get interesting, and they did make Keith Lee tonight. They bathed him, basked him in a glorious light, if you will. But the matchup as a whole, much like the women's matchup, was a big heaping mess. How do you eliminate Walter first? If anything gets the poop hammer on this night, it has to be that. How do you eliminate Walter, the NXT UK champion? You want to sit there and hear Nigel McGuinness talk about how the Imperium has been so dominant. Walter has been the most dominant champion. He's been a great champion since he's got it from Pete Dunne, and all of the pomp and circumstance and all of the hyperbole that they're throwing out there about Walter. And then he gets beaten first. Not before Baron Corbin, not before Chad Gable or Ricochet. Walter, the NXT UK champion. The guy that was getting the biggest reaction almost out of everybody out there, and those are some big heavy names out there. With the exception of Kevin Owens, I would think Walter got the second biggest reception of the night. And then add on top of that what they did with Kevin Owens in this match, which was nothing. Kevin Owens did nothing. He had one interesting spot where he went up for a frog splash and he had his choice. He could have hit somebody from NXT or somebody from SmackDown. That somebody from SmackDown was Chad Gable. He decided to do that, only to immediately be followed up by being eliminated by his team captain last night in War Games, Tommaso Ciampa. Now, I know they're on opposite teams right now, but Tommaso Ciampa eliminating Kevin Owens tonight just seemed kind of wrong. In fact, eliminating Kevin Owens tonight at all seemed very wrong. And if you were going to give a win to anybody here, it didn't need to be Roman Reigns and SmackDown. It didn't need to be Seth Rollins. It didn't need to be any of the guys from NXT. Kevin Owens should have won that match tonight. The fact that he was beaten pretty unceremoniously and pretty quickly in this matchup and became a non-entity, and that there was no swerve at the end and nothing cool happened and nobody turned and nobody came back to swing the tide or anything like that. This was just nonsensically booked. More of the Baron Corbin, Roman Reigns inner turmoil nonsense. Like that's so important. Who cares about any of that? I definitely didn't. Braun Strowman taking people out like a freight train. Ooh, we haven't seen that 100 times before. Ricochet being thrown around like a lawn dart, flying around defying gravity as he is known to do. All of the typical stuff you would expect to see. But once again, much like the women's match, very quick, rapid fire eliminations, some of which don't even make sense. We're going to talk about them right now. Drew McIntyre pins Walter after executing a Claymore kick. The crowd was really mad at this, and so was I, because that was a real bullshit move, and that's why they get the poop hammer for the elimination of Walter. WWE Creative, you ass bags. After this, Kevin Owens pinned Chad Gable with a frog splash. Tommaso Ciampa then pinned Kevin Owens with the draping DDT, as we just talked about a minute ago. Randy Orton then came in and pinned Damian Priest with an RKO before Damian Priest could even do anything. And now this guy is spectacular. And they didn't even give him a moment to truly shine in this matchup. He was just out there. He went in there and got RKO'd and went home and collected a paycheck. And good for you for making money tonight, Mr. Priest. But my God, they really didn't even try with this matchup. This was just all ridiculousness. This was then followed up with a flash pinfall by Matt Riddle on Randy Orton. The very same Randy Orton who was 100% fresh. The very same Randy Orton that just eliminated the one of the two biggest men on Team NXT with the RKO out of nowhere. Gets rolled up by the bro, Matt Riddle. And everybody's like, oh, this is going to set up Orton and Riddle. Blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding me? Randy Orton being eliminated is not the issue here. Matt Riddle being the one to eliminate Randy Orton is not the issue here. The manner in which he was eliminated is the issue. This is Randy Orton. We've seen him go through wars and bloody up, get bloodied up by Brock Lesnar and like, you want me to believe he was just beaten that easily? No, but he could just beat Damian Priest, though, in 3 seconds, but he can't kick out of a roll-up. Randy Orton can't kick out of a roll-up. You couldn't have thought of a better way to do that? Maybe Matt Riddle fucking hits him with something and actually pins Randy Orton? That would be a more shocking moment, I think. Have Randy Orton tap out to a bro mission. No, don't do anything interesting. We're just going to roll up, and it's all happening within minutes, like this. Corbin then would pin Matt Riddle. Drew McIntyre would use a Claymore kick on the outside on Braun Strowman, which would lead to him getting counted out. Are there countouts in a triple threat matchup? Somebody please clarify. Because if it's not a triple threat match and there are rules, then maybe you should enforce those rules in the other triple threat matches we were seeing all night long, where people were just laying on the outside and the referee seemingly didn't care because there was other action to be worried about. But not here. Here, Braun Strowman gets counted out because Vince McMahon doesn't want anybody beating Braun Strowman all of a sudden. Why have him in this match if you're not going to make him win? I'll do you even one better. SmackDown was the team that was going to fucking win anyway. So why not just have him make it to the end with Roman? If you don't want Braun Strowman to be pinned or be eliminated, have him just go through it with Roman till the end. Why did Roman have to stand alone? Would have been much more interesting to see Braun Strowman versus Keith Lee. You teased that at the end of SmackDown, but we barely got any of that. Ridiculous. Baron Corbin then pinned Ricochet after executing the End of Days. Seth Rollins pinned Ali after a curb stomp. Roman Reigns then pinned Drew McIntyre following a spear. Ciampa pinned Baron Corbin after Roman Reigns speared Corbin. And then Rollins would pin Ciampa after a curb stomp. And then Keith Lee would be pinned by Roman Reigns to end this matchup. And that, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Because you can't have Keith Lee pin Seth Rollins and eliminate Seth Rollins and then follow that up with an elimination of Roman Reigns. That would just make it too much for him. Unless he was main roster. If he was jumping up to the main roster and he was, but you can't have a Keith Lee from NXT single-handedly defeat the WWE's two biggest guys. I mean, if you did that, you would immediately just make him... You made him as it was tonight. You would have made it very hard for him to just go back to NXT. So, and at the same time, Vince isn't going to let Roman Reigns ever going to look bad. And Roman was going to win that match the minute it was announced. And I'm just more disappointed in the entirety of the matchup. I think the triple threat format made it more difficult. But I just really didn't enjoy them all that much. They were good matches. There were some good moments. There was some high quality stuff. But at the same time, it was strange. Didn't make sense. Very quick, nonsensical eliminations. And you can't tell me they're trying to set up stories for the future between NXT superstars and main roster superstars, because the day may never come when they're ever even actually on the same show. So we can hope for things like Riddle versus Orton to come out of this, but I doubt that'll actually be a thing. Unless Randy Orton goes down to NXT looking for trouble, in which case I'll allow it. I'll allow all of it. Brock Lesnar versus Rey Mysterio for the WWE Championship. This should have been the main event of the evening, and it would have left everybody going home a little bit more happy. I think this moment that happened in this match would have at least got people to rise up out of their seats and give a shit about the end of the show. Brock Lesnar telling the story that Brock Lesnar tells. This was not a very long match, but it was a very intense match, and he went in there, and even with the decided advantage of having a steel pipe and using steel chairs or whatever it is he could try to get his hands on, Rey Mysterio, tonight, even with his steel pipe in hand, just couldn't get ahead on the Beast Brock Lesnar. He was clearly in control for a majority of the match, absolutely destroying him, and then Lesnar got the pipe, which prompted Dominic to come down with a towel. Very reminiscent of what we've seen MJF do in AEW recently when we saw him make that decision for Cody Rhodes. And I'm hoping that that's not what they're going to do. Don't just have him throw in the towel and copy that whole thing. And thankfully, that was not what happened. Lesnar took the towel from Dominic and threw it out of the ring before he was able to throw it in for his dad. He then turned his attention to little Dominic, the giant baby man, and Tiny Dad would take exception to this. Suddenly, Rey Mysterio and Dominic find themselves with the advantage on Brock Lesnar and executed a couple of low blows, dueling low blows, and then a double 619. Then, surprising the whole entire wrestling world, Dominic went to the top rope and executed a frog splash. It wasn't the prettiest frog splash, but if I were fortunate enough to be his age and have my first frog splash ever happen in the semi-main event of Survivor Series, and I'm going to be hitting it on Brock Lesnar, I'd be pretty damn proud of myself, and hats off to Dominic. We have a lot of fun with him. We call him Tiny Baby, we call him Giant Baby Man, and we call Rey Mysterio Tiny Dad. But tonight, they really showed some guts, and they really showed some gusto, and I thought this match was booked very well. There was only a few ways you could go here. And for one fleeting second, I actually believed Rey Mysterio was going to be victorious thanks to the no DQ stipulation and the involvement of his son. But that would not be the case. Because even though Rey Mysterio would follow up with a frog splash of his own, and then Giant Baby Man would jump on top of Tiny Dad trying to keep down the beast for a 3 count, it was not meant to be. Brock Lesnar kicked out. He then... He kicked out, and then Dominic went to go to the top rope. Brock Lesnar would come up behind him very quickly, execute a German suplex. He follows this up by catching Rey Mysterio, who was coming at him off the top rope, and executing an F5 for the win. Very short match, but this was great. And this should have been the way the show went off the air. I think the crowd would have been much more forgiving. It would have been fast. It would have been to the point. It would have been exciting and unexpected. And everybody would have went home much happier and not chanting CM Punk while the ladies were trying to do their thing in the main event, which we said at the very start of the show shouldn't have been the main event. This whole entire situation existed only to give NXT the final nail in the coffin, as well as putting over Shayna Baszler as the badass that she is, and giving her a win over some of the top women in the WWE, which is great to see. But this match just really was dead to the crowd. I was enjoying it for the most part on my couch, but I feel like the crowd's disinterest in it started to become my focus, and I started to focus less on the match and started to be like, why are they not involved in this matchup? These girls are out there killing each other right now, and it was a little slow paced, and it wasn't the most exciting women's matchup that we have ever seen, but it was very well put together. It was much better than the Survivor Series matchups, I thought. It was another very good triple threat on the night, but at the end, Bayley would tap out to Shayna Baszler after she was caught in the Karafuda clutch. After the match, Becky Lynch would scoop Baszler from the legs on the table as she was on the announce tables as she was celebrating, hip toss Baszler off of the announce table, and then came off the barricade, splashing on top of Baszler, putting her through the table. They then kept talking about Becky Lynch was not the one that got beaten here. Baszler never won. Never beat Becky Lynch. She won the match, but she didn't beat Becky Lynch. But NXT finishes with 4 wins on the night. SmackDown gets 2 wins and 1 lonely, pathetic win for Raw. It's interesting that they decided to count the pre-show this year, and I feel like the only reason they decided to count the pre-show this year is so that Raw can actually have a win after just 1 year ago winning the whole entire thing. But Survivor Series was an enjoyable show. I have my problems with the Survivor Series style matchups and some of the things that we outlined tonight, but for the most part, tonight was a very solid show. I did not want to kill myself while watching it. I didn't find myself thinking to myself, I should be watching The Mandalorian instead of this, or I should be doing something more constructive with my time, like watching grass grow or baking cookies to eat later on while I decide to wallow in my depression because I'm a wrestling fan that is stuck in a world of wrestling that seemingly never ends anymore. Let me tell you guys something. We're going to close out this Survivor Series review with a little bit of personal news right here. This new schedule is fucking killing me. It's killing me. It is not working very well with my personal life. I am getting so burnt out on some of this stuff that maybe my reviews are not coming out as good as they used to. I'm going to be flat out honest with you guys. There's just too much. There's too much. This weekend was crazy, and it's not even over yet. You realize we've been talking about wrestling 7 days a week since AEW has become a thing and SmackDown has moved to Friday. I hate it. I was much happier when we had Monday and Tuesday. And then we could have had AEW on Wednesday. It would have left me some time to actually review NXT. I don't even have the time to do my NXT reviews anymore. If I happen to have the free amount of time to get one up there, I will try my best to do it. But AEW right now takes precedence. It gains me the bigger audience, so we're going to stick with that. My Wednesday Night War reviews I can't get them done. I can't get them done. There is just not enough time in the day for a human being to do all these things and have a regular job and be a husband and be a dad and have the holidays coming and do all the things necessary. And then you have all the things life wants to throw at you. Like they want to have, you have to get emotional and go through emotional things like the death of somebody that means something to you. And they want to give you personal injuries so that your training at House of Glory is not going as well as planned. And then you got to go through all these crazy mental things on top of it. And I'm telling you guys this because I love you guys. And we're at 56 minutes in. And only my true diehard fans are actually watching me right now. And I love each and every one of you. And I want you to know why things have kind of been a little bit wonky here. You might be thinking to yourself, why aren't we getting the NXT? Why haven't I seen Wednesday Night War reviews? Because my life is crazy right now, and this wrestling schedule is just so overwhelming. And we're still trying to adjust and adapt, and right now I'm feeling the burn, and I'm feeling the pressure, but I'm still here with you guys. And thankfully, this weekend, at least for Saturday, and for the most part tonight, we got some good wrestling to talk about. I was able to pick apart tonight just a little bit. I wasn't able to do that last night. NXT TakeOver War Games was a damn near flawless show. I could nitpick and pull out a few things because there is no such thing as a perfect show. But damn, they were friggin' close. They were so close. And War Games still will be the show of the year, hands down. Survivor Series was a great effort by the main roster for once, but without the injection of NXT, do you think it would have been nearly as good? No. So you have to give the credit to Triple H and Shawn Michaels and the gang at NXT for making Survivor Series weekend everything it possibly could be. And now we have to tune in tomorrow night to Monday Night Raw, and I feel like the bubble is going to burst because we're going to go back to just regular old stuff. We're not going to have NXT invasions. We're not going to have brand warfare. We're just going to have old Monday Night Raw as we start to get ready for the end of the year and hopefully move towards the Royal Rumble in a positive direction, which might be the case coming off of this, but unless NXT is going to be involved in that, don't expect it to be any good either. NXT proved this weekend that they are the preeminent, and best brand in all of sports entertainment. After War Games and Survivor Series, you can't argue that. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team. Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue, the Snowball. The most important member of the team, as always, is each and every one of you. And now is the time for me to invite you all. If you are still watching me and you're not subscribed, you are absolutely awesome. And now is your time to hit that subscribe button. So hit that subscribe button right now. Become part of the Sledgehead Army today. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss anything else we got coming out to you guys on this channel. And then share this video with each and every one of your wrestling buddies all over the wrestling world, especially if they need to know a few of the things that were wrong with tonight's very, very good edition of the Survivor series. Don't forget to check out everything else on the channel, like the War Games review, the SmackDown Live review, Monday Night Raw, AEW, and everything else in between. Sledgehammer TV is the place to be for all your pro wrestling needs. When you want your wrestling news done with some fun, some honesty, and just in a way for us to all have a good time and express our opinions, this is your new home. Thank you guys all for being with me once again. That, my friends, is going to do it, and we are out of here, and we will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV right here on YouTube.com.